And we're back with part 2 of Joe Pass's tricks on how to improvise chord melodies with speed. In this edition, we will be unpacking our second trick, fully diminished chord voicings. So why care about diminished chords? Well, because they're everywhere in jazz music, and you have to know how to navigate these chords while you're improvising or creating chord melodies. In this episode, we cover the 3 diminished scales, how Joe Pass uses diminished chords and scales in his playing, and how you can incorporate these chords and scales into your own playing. So let's get started. The 3 diminished scales: the Locrian mode, the whole half diminished scale, and the half whole diminished scale. The Locrian mode is primarily used for half diminished chords, also known as minor 7 flat 5 chords. The whole half diminished scale is used for fully diminished chords, and the half whole diminished scale is used over altered dominant chords because of the presence of the flat 9, sharp 9, and flat 5, which are common tensions in altered dominant chords. We are going to be focusing primarily on the whole half and half whole diminished scales and fully diminished chords. The cool thing about fully diminished chords and whole half/half whole diminished scales is that they're symmetrical, meaning that they repeat every minor third. So if you have a fully diminished chord, you can move it up or down by a minor third, and it will still be within the same scale. The other cool thing is that the whole half and half whole diminished scales are essentially the same scale, only a half step apart. So D flat whole half scale is the same as a C half whole diminished scale. So here's a handy shape that Joe Pass uses commonly over fully diminished chords. So in this example, this would be an F fully diminished. He will play this shape. Like I said, you can move it around by minor thirds, and you're still in the same key. So I'm going to play a passage from the standard Night and Day, where Joe incorporates this chord over an F fully diminished chord. So I'm going to start with the previous chord in the song, which is F sharp minor 7. You can see he's moving this shape up and down by minor thirds and connecting those chord shapes with other notes from the fully diminished scale. And resolving to the A at the end. The other shape that Joe really likes to use over diminished chords is this shape. Again, it can be moved around by minor thirds. And in combination with our other chord shape, we can harmonize every note in the diminished scale. So, for example, and then going up, all right, so I'll show you how Joe uses this in Night and Day. Again, starting with the previous chord, F sharp minor 7. Right, so you can see it right there, our first shape, and then our second shape, and then resolving to the A. So obviously we can use these chord shapes over fully diminished chords, but the really cool thing is that you can also use them over dominant chords. So if you have an F fully diminished chord, and you change the bass note from F to E, you have an E dominant chord. And these shapes and scales work perfectly over this as well. So if I, over the E dominant chord, play, it works over that. So we can apply these diminished scales and shapes over most dominant chords. So for example, if I take a 2-5-1 in the key of A, B minor 7, E7, altered, A major 7, I can throw in some of these shapes over the E7. Or So practice playing these diminished scales and shapes over fully diminished chords and dominant chords, and let me know how it goes in the comments below. Also, if you haven't seen part 1 of this 3-part series, check it out here. Part 3 will be coming out next week about pedals and inverted pedals. So please subscribe to the channel and let me know if you have any questions in the comments or if you have any ideas for videos you'd like to see in the future. Thanks for watching. See you soon.